has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast.
And we are back from Coast to Coast here on a Wednesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty, SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. Of course, every Tuesday and Wednesday you get the extended version of the very popular SportsGrid Radio show, Carver and Lisi. That's with myself and the encyclopedia of college football, the one, the only, go for the two, Joe Lisi, here with me. All right, Joe, I was just telling you we have a lot to do this hour, several topics, but I have one more NFL thing that I have to do with you because I got this just for you. I saw this yesterday, and I said, this has Joe written all over it. We know how much you like to hammer away at Russell Wilson and Sean Payton and the Broncos. We've had a good laugh with it this year. We know the deal. They sat him the last 2 games of the year because they don't want him to get hurt, because they want to be able to cut him and not have to owe him $35+ million next year on March the 3rd this year. If he gets hurt. You had the story about the general manager trying to make him change the contract in October for those injury claims, etc. So we're all under the impression that Russell Wilson's done in Denver, right, Joe? No more Russ. I mean, Russ's going to be gone. They're going to chop him. They're going to move on. Here's Sean Payton yesterday in their, end of season press conference that they all had in Denver. And he actually, Joe, had the stones to try to sell you that Russ could be back with the Broncos next year. Here's Payton.
There's so many things that go into a decision specific to the quarterback, which is significant, obviously. So it's too early at all. I spent half an hour with Russ yesterday, and I told him, I said, look, I don't think it's going to be a long, drawn-out process, but it hasn't been decided relative to what our plans are. And but as soon as we know something that certainly, he would be the first to know.
Following up on Russ, was the tenor of the discussion, there is a scenario where he's back with you next year?
Yeah, listen, otherwise it would have been like, hey, goodbye, and yeah. And so I said that, I think, to you guys way back when. We'll look at all the scenarios and try to do what's best for the Broncos. But communication will be important, and that final decision hasn't been made.
Yeah, Sean Payton, let me just say this. If that's what he planned to talk about, Carver, in regards to Russell Wilson, he is absolutely kidding himself. I cannot believe that he had said there is no way Russell Wilson is not going to be a part of that team. Let me just say this right now, Carver. Okay? I will put odds that Sean Payton might not be in Denver longer than Russell Wilson. How about that? Because maybe he knows something that we don't. This was a complete rebuild without Russell Wilson at the helm. Okay? Now that he's uncertain about the quarterback position and it's going to take more work for potentially him to get back to the playoffs and develop a young team, I don't think Sean Payton's going to be there. I'll tell you this right now. Sean Payton went to that job and went to Denver because he thought it was an easy fix, Carver. He thought they were going to go to the playoffs with just touching, the offense and turning it around. The pixie dust. He's crazy.
He is crazy,
coached his
Joe.
team down.
Look, he ain't going to be the quarterback next year. Like, there was absolutely zero reason for it.
Well, Payton might be gone. I tell you what. Do you think Payton?
No.
All right, so let me ask you this. Do you think Payton took this job to rebuild it? He took this job because he had the $140 million quarterback. He had above average defense statistically last year, and he thought he could just walk in and make it to the playoffs.
They also gave him $1 zillion. They also gave him $1 zillion, those new owners.
Yeah, but he can get $1 zillion going back to Fox and looking like a fish out of water. He's got no personality, by the way.
Not as much as he's going to get.
He looks like a deer in the headlights. He's not charismatic in any capacity. I'll say that right now. I'll bash him with the Billy Club. He's absolutely pathetic on here. Okay,
You're going after him. Going after
he doesn't
him.
know what he's doing.
Going
When
after
the
him.
X's and O's, when the quarterback drops back to pass, he
He
doesn't
ain't gonna be the
know his
quarterback.
ass from his elbow on TV.
He ain't gonna be the quarterback. It was just nonsense, complete nonsense from him yesterday.
selling
Same
this
thing with the
team.
general manager, Peyton.
Peyton's
He did an
gutless.
awful. Gutless, Joe, gutless. Go ahead and say it. That's the way that it is. There you go with your NFL. I have a couple things NBA for you, and we have a very big slate tonight, which we're going to get to later this hour. First of all, Clippers, Joe, gave Kawhi 3 years, $153 million. Not bad. I mean, this is the first year he's actually playing all the games, right? So we might as well.
Early.
It's
early.
It's early yet.
Yeah, come on. Wait till February rolls around and, all of a sudden he'll tweak his back. And you know how I know? Bet his player props and then tell me what happens.
Yeah. Miami gave Spoelstra 8 years, $120 million.
He deserves it.
Because he's the best coach in the NBA. So I got no problem whatsoever with that deal. Lakers beat the Raptors 132-131 last night. In the fourth quarter, the Lakers shot 23 free throws and the Raptors shot 2. This is Raptors head coach Darko Rajakovic. I know you probably hadn't heard of him before. Darko. So I like Darko, Joe. I haven't spent much time with Darko yet this year. In fact, I didn't, you barely got to see him as the Raptor head coach, but he made his presence felt after the game last night. This is a little long, Joe, but it's worth it. Here's Darko.
You shot with 23 free throws in that fourth quarter. What did you
Thank you, Doug. That's outrageous. What happened tonight, this is completely BS. This is shame. Shame for the referees, shame for the league to allow this. 23 free throws for them, and we get 2 free throws in the fourth quarter. Like, how to play the game. I understand respect for all stars and all that, but we have star players on our team as well. How's possible that Scotty Barnes, who is all-star caliber player in this league, he goes every single time to the rim with force and trying to get to the rim without flopping and not trying to get foul calls. He gets 2 free throws for the whole game. How's that possible? How are you going to explain that to me? They had to win tonight? If that's the case, just let us know so we don't show up for the game. Just give them a win. But that was not fair tonight. Yeah. And this is not happening first time for us. Scotty Barnes is going to be all-star. He's going to be the face of this league. And what's happening over here during whole season, I've been holding it back. It's a complete crap.
Wow.
Darko getting involved.
I like this guy. He's right, though.
This
23
is shame,
times.
he says. This is shame. That was
He's
great.
Right.
Oh.
The rest. They bury the whistle when Scotty Barnes is going to the tin, right? All of a sudden, LeBron or AD go to the tin. You touch their shoulder. That's it. Let's go back to bully ball. I say we go back to the days of Lambier. Give me Rodman. Give me a little body English when you go to Malone, Jordan. Give me that. A little body English.
That was worth the price of admission right there. Nice job by Darko. They play again tonight in Los Angeles, this time against the Clippers. We'll give you those numbers later on. We have Keith Stewart next, though. More Golf Wednesday on C2C. Sony Open. Let's go. We're back after this on the grid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
San Francisco minus 120 to win the NFC Championship. It's the Cowboys with the second best number. The Eagles at 7-1.
What the hell's the difference between the 6 and the 7 seed? I need my guys healthy here to make a playoff push. They took the bye week and still won the football game. You want to talk about two franchises going in the wrong direction? The Eagles. Ridiculous what they did this week.
The early line. only on SportsGrid.
It's a lot of fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, a Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back for El Coast to Coast here on a Wednesday. Carver High in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. I'm going to get Keith Stewart in here in a moment. Before we do, though, we have some very big breaking news from the college football world. Chris Lowe from ESPN reporting right now that Nick Saban is retiring at Alabama. How about that? So Nick Saban going to retire from the Alabama Crimson Tide. This tweet, he just informed the team that he's retiring. Sources tell ESPN 6 national championships for Saban at Alabama, and he is going to be walking away. Now that one, we spent a lot of the first hour talking about Pete Carroll, of course, being out in Seattle, not seeing that coming. I did not at all see this one coming, landed on our desk this afternoon, that's for sure. So in a couple minutes, I'll have Joe back. Joe obviously is the man for this, and we will go through Saban leaving Alabama here in a few minutes on Coast to Coast. We do have, of course, Keith Stewart with us right now, as we do every single Wednesday right here on Coast to Coast, because we have we're out in Hawaii still. Sony Open is coming up. Keith Stewart, of course, Read the Line, is with us every week. Keith, great to see you. As always, my man, our second tournament of the year, our first full field event. And you had a pretty good first weekend, Keith. Welcome aboard. How are you?
Oh, I tell you, there's nothing quite like live betting. I mean, you could just make up for when those outrights hit a fairway bunker late and you get a bad break. You live bet all weekend and you get that positive card. There's nothing better. But Carver, I have breaking news for you. Out of the golf world, the reason that Nick Saban's retiring is because another Georgia Bulldog won last week on the PGA Tour, and he just can't take it anymore. I think that's what it is. Chris Kirk winning the Century at 200-1. Saban's out. He can't take these Georgia Bulldogs anymore.
You can. And the Georgia Bulldogs, I mean, they've had really a hot year, right? I mean, last year was a huge year for all the Georgia Bulldogs as well on the tour. It was Harmon at the Open Championship, and we had other things going on. Clearly, Georgia Bulldogs, there's plenty of them, that's for sure. Sepp Straka also had himself a pretty good year last year. Let's get to the Sony, Keith, because we were talking about it a little bit later. We've got some decent names that hung around from last week. Fitzpatrick is there. O'Bear is there. We have Tyrrell Hatton in the mix. So some pretty fun chalk at the top of this board. Where are you looking, Keith, for the outrights beginning this week?
Well, Carver, man, this is why you bring me on. I would be very wary of some of those names at the top. There are 33, not PGA Tour rookies, but rookies going into Wailea Country Club this week. And 16 of the last 17 Sony Open winners have played there previously. So Fleetwood, or Hatton, Fitzpatrick, Oberg, all those guys, they haven't played there before. I'd be very worried about betting those guys. I'm looking a little bit further down. Over the last 10 winners, the average pre-tournament winning odds is right there in the 40 to 50 range, right around plus 4,700. Those are the guys in the middle tier where we can make some money, and I love some names in that range. And, of course, it starts with the mailman himself, JT Poston.
I love JT Poston a lot. He has absolutely hit some tickets for me in the past. What was that, 2 years ago he won the John Deere, right, Keith? If my memory serves me correctly, he got me there. Yep. I had him that weekend, which was a nice win. You have actually two that I am on this weekend as well, and that is Eric Cole at 30-1, also on your outright list. Cole's a guy for me, Keith, that we've been chasing here for a while. Ever since last year when he had that big performance at the Honda, just fell short, and then winning Rookie of the Year, lots of close calls. You just feel like at the start of this year that Cole at some point, especially in the first few months here before the Masters, maybe can break through and get himself a victory.
Well, he had a really hot fall. There's no mystery there. 4 top 4 finishes in his last 5 starts in the fall. He was 14th last week. And the big, complaint I get all the time, hey, Keith, Eric Cole, he can't keep the ball in the fairway. Well, forget that. At the Zozo, which is just as tight, it's another bowling alley, just like YLA, he finished runner-up. I love Eric Cole this week because this is the type of place where you got to get it just in between the palm trees, and then from there, let the wedge and the putter do the work. And there's no doubt that Eric Cole is really finding his stride at this point. I'm with you on Cole. He plays just like Poston. They're both really strong on approach right now. That's where my money's starting, in that top middle tier.
Let's get a little bit longer here with some guys. You have 2 more on your outright board. You one definite and one that you say you also like, and that's our boy Harry English, who's there. But double L you have on the list this week. Luke List getting involved.
Luke List, 6 of his last 7 starts are in the top 25, and there's a win in there. And guys like that hit it that good, well, guess what? 5 of his last 6, he's gained with the putter. Carver, I'm not kidding you. Luke List gaining with the putter. It's not just it's
with the putter.
It's not just 1 week. It's 5 of the last 6 he's gained with the putter. Last week he was 18th ranked at the end of the week at the Century with the putter, and Kapalua is tough to putt. So all of a sudden, we're going to go back to those days. He's sitting right around 90-1 where he was when he won the Farmers 2 years ago. I had him at Read the Line, and I see that number, and I see the way he's putting, and you're talking about a guy who could pull out driver at YLA and take advantage of his ball striking ability. I love this spot, and I love this number because he was solid last week, and he's been great all fall.
Let's now take a look at, of course, we always do top 5s, 10s, 20s, 40s, wherever you want to go. The placing finishes for you. You have a couple of these same guys, but we've sprinkled in also, Keith, a few other guys, including last week's winner, Chris Kirk.
So yesterday I'm on with the early line guys, and Joe Ranieri's going, hey, what do you think about Siwoo defending? And I said, if anyone's going back-to-back, it's Chris Kirk. He's a better pick when you talk about the Hawaiian swing over there at Honolulu than he is at Kapalua. There's no doubt about that. So I love him for a little top 10 cash. Can he go get 30 more birdies another week? Probably not, but I like the fact that he has 5 top 10s there in his career. So I love him there. A little further down the board, as you're looking at that chart, Ryan Moore had a really strong finish to his fall. And at Sea Island, I was there on property. We had a huge rain delay, and I got stuck in a tent with him and his caddy. We had a really long conversation about where he stands at this point in his career. And he said, next year, he goes, I'm coming back. He goes, I'm putting the time and the energy in. And I said, you know what? I said, here's the type of guy on a positional golf course. Ryan Moore, top 40 at 2-1. Let's make some cash.
I like it a lot, Keith, and especially when I look at your board there with the numbers you just gave me on Double L, Luke List, about how many top 25s he has. That kind of a price for a top 40 for him is something that, thank you very much, I will be adding to my card this weekend out at the Sony. We got to get some head-to-heads in here with a minute left, Keith. What do you got for me on the head-to-head board?
Well, you kind of mentioned it earlier. We're talking about another Georgia alum, Harry English, right? Good, solid week. He's getting better with the approach game all fall, rolled into the Century, looking good. He always putts it well. He's another good fit here. And you know what? Last year's defending champ, Si Woo, he was not good striking the ball last week at the Century. And he's one of the few guys that's won at the Sony without a hot putter. So I kind of like where his momentum's going up. And I don't like where Si Woo's heading right now. And another quick one for you, Thigala, tight fairways? No. And we're already talking about Cole. So there's a bonus one for you there. How about Cole over Thigala? You got to love it.
Thigala last week, Keith. Shades of when he lost me my ticket at the Travelers a couple years ago on the last hole on Sunday when he let Xander Schauffele get him up there at Cromwell. Keith, tremendous job. Let's cash some more tickets this weekend. You'll be back next week. The Amex. We go stateside. And that La Quinta with the 3 different tracks on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. A tough tournament, Keith. We will talk to you next week.
Can't wait, and I'm going to be on site. Let's do it. Come on, Carver.
Let's go. That's what I like to hear. We will come back for El Coast to Coast on a Wednesday. We will get more into Nick Saban out at Alabama. Joe's reaction next on the Grid.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
San Francisco minus 120 to win the NFC Championship. It's the Cowboys with the second best number. The Eagles at 7-1.
What the hell's the difference between the 6 and the 7 seed? I need my guys healthier to make a playoff push. They took the bye and still won the football game. You want to talk about two franchises going in the wrong direction? The Eagles. Ridiculous what they did this week.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
A lot of fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, a Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back, Ferrall, coast to coast here on a Wednesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. All right, Joe, I told everybody right before I talked to Keith there, we have major news here this afternoon out of the college football world. That's why it's always good to have the encyclopedia of college football here with us every Tuesday and Wednesday on C2C. Joe, you know this game well. You have watched tons and hundreds and thousands of Alabama games since Nick Saban has been in Tuscaloosa. I guess the first thing I'll say to you is, are you surprised that now, look, he's fiddled around with retirement and how long he's going to coach in the past. He's always making the jokes at the podium about the wife and all that stuff. But I don't think anybody ever took it seriously or thought he was any close to being done. How surprised are you, Joe, that we find out here a few minutes ago, Nick Saban done in Tuscaloosa?
Looking back, not that surprised, Carver, because, when Nick was intense in his press conferences, he used to fly off the rails. All right. We didn't hear any of that this year. He was calm. He was collected. Think about the press conference after the game against Michigan. He was talking about Tommy Rees, the play call. He wasn't flying off the rails. And quite honestly, I think he just had enough. I mean, you look at the college football playoff appearances, played in a national championship game a couple of years ago with Bryce Young. They went toe-to-toe. Jameis Williams gets hurt, and they lose that ball game. Then they get into the playoff this year. They get knocked out in terms of the playoff run in overtime. Just not the same dominant offense and defenses that we've seen. We've seen more regression over the past 3 or 4 seasons under Nick Saban, not as potentially as physical, even though they were undefeated in the SEC. I'm not that quite shocked.
This is an unbelievable run that he's had there, Joe. Obviously became the coach in 2007, so been there a very long time, 6 national championships. And the funny part was that I wanted to get the exact age for you here while I was about to bring him up. We talked about Pete Carroll earlier, 72. Nick Saban also 72. So that's pretty weird that we do Carroll and Saban today, both guys 72 years old. I'm probably more surprised than you are. And listen, you know this stuff 10 times better than I do when it comes down to it. Because he just doesn't feel – he's like another one of these guys, like I was saying with Carroll. Like, you have to drag him away almost. But here's one thing that I think about, Joe, as you were just talking right now about him at the press conferences and him saying all these things. What's the one thing in the last 2 or 3 years that Nick has really harped on a lot? The changing of college football, the way that NIL and the transfer portal. I'm not going to say he's taking his ball and going home, Joe, because the game changed and he couldn't just out-recruit everybody anymore and have the best player. Because, Joe, for 10 years, that was the case. He had the best players, bar none, better than everybody, and you didn't have to worry about NIL and transfer portals. I think there's a little bit of that has to be tied in here, Joe, that he's been dealing with this for 2 or 3 years and seeing how it's going, and he finally – that's part of the reason why he maybe said, I don't need this. This is way too much.
I agree with you 100%. And let's not forget, we talked about it with Harbaugh the other night. Does he stay or does he go? And when you win a national championship at a Power 5 school like Michigan and or Alabama, and you have the ability to recruit and keep that train in motion, it's very easy to stay there because it sells itself. Now with NIL, now with the transfer portal, it's like whoever has the most money has an inside track to getting potentially the best recruits. And hey, why do I want to go to Alabama when I could stay home in Ohio or Texas and get, $2 or $3 million. Or in some cases, when you look at Nico, the starting quarterback for Tennessee, got $9 million to go to Tennessee. I mean, these kids are making enormous amounts of money where the coach isn't the most important factor for that ball club. And, you look at brand recognition, it was Saban's way. That's what these coaches want. It's my way or no way. And that's why he left the Miami Dolphins, Carver, because it was more of a business, right? And that's what we have now in regards to the college football landscape. I will say this. It is intriguing that he ties Bear Bryant, right? Doesn't get the 7 national championships to surpass Bear Bryant. He retires at Alabama, tied with 6 national championships. They're obviously catching one in Baton Rouge back in 2003 with the LSU Tigers as well.
Yeah, and look, Joe, I think that obviously the things we talked about just a moment ago was going to make it probably more difficult for him to get that 7th when you think about it with NIL in the portal, and also the fact that he probably doesn't like that it's going to 12 next year either, Joe. He's a traditionalist. No. The 14 playoffs, he's made it very, that's just possibly 2 more games that he could get picked off before winning another national championship. So probably that door being there as well wasn't one that he wanted to walk through. All right, Joe. Now, obviously, the next thing is going to be that is one of the best jobs, not just, Joe, in college football. I mean, it's one of the premier jobs in sports, right? I mean, the head football coach at the University of Alabama, Saban has held that ground for a very long time and has been super successful. These are major shoes that are going to have to get filled in Tuscaloosa. Now, I was just looking at this Pete Thamel tweet, Joe, and he says there's no likely internal replacement. Well, he's got that right. They're not going to hand Tommy Rees the keys to the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Here's the Alabama, here's the oak door and the chair.
Here
right?
you go. Now, here's his quick projected list. Dan Lanning, who I also saw McMurphy say Dan Lanning would be at the top of the list. Kalen DeBoer, Dabo Swinney, James Franklin, Mike Norvell, and Marcus Freeman. Have they watched Notre Dame the last 2 years?
James Franklin.
James Franklin. Okay.
All right.
He says here, all come with complications and big buyouts since it's difficult to move entrenched coaches. Let's remember something else, Joe. There are a lot of guys running around, not just college football, but the NFL who have Nick Saban ties that Nick Saban has brought in as assistants, whether that is Brian Dable, Lane Kiffin. I'm not going to say Kirby Smart because obviously Kirby's at Georgia and he's built his own empire over there. The Dabo one's interesting to me, Joe. The Dabo one's interesting to me.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Carver. He didn't address the transfer portal or NIL at Clemson.
You don't like it either. Yeah.
If you're an Alabama backer right now and a legend is stepping down, if this was 3 or 4 years ago, circa Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Clemson, then I say it's a great fit for the organization and the franchise and the team. But he hasn't coached up a quarterback since Trevor Lawrence left. Kate Klubnik is pedestrian. So, pump the brakes on Dabo just a little bit because we saw Dabo's defense take a step back too after Brett Venables took the job at Oklahoma. I will say what's attractive. You think of former assistants, Sarkisian with Texas. I'm sure he'll get a call. Lane Kiffin, what Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss has built that program up. 10 wins at Ole Miss, back-to-back, almost back-to-back years, second year there. I mean, let's not forget that. He's recruited really well in Oxford. Now you give him the keys to Tuscaloosa, everything is open. I would want a younger head coach. Dan Lanning, I'll just say this, physicality, offensive, defensive lines. He was a graduate assistant in 2016 at Alabama, was on Kirby Smart's staff, was a national champion. He's an up-and-comer. He's 35, 36 years old. And you saw the progression of Bo Nix, even with Kenny Dillingham now at Arizona State. He builds staffs. That's a pretty good fit, but would he want to go? I mean, here's the thing. Would he want to go? Because, it's 12 teams now. So these coaches, if I'm Dan Lanning, I have that train in motion in Eugene. Why do I want to bolt? I'm almost guaranteed a top 12 ranking, right?
It's very tricky, Joe, and whoever it is, I don't think it's going to be like you mentioned Brian Dable, and I saw a couple of people. They need someone who's established in the college game. That is a huge job. The guys we're talking about. This is going to be a ripple effect, Joe. This is going to be a trickle-down effect. One of these guys, maybe it's one of the big names we just mentioned from the famous
They're not
league.
getting Mike Elko type. They're not going to get a Mike Elko type.
No, they are. Joe, this is Alabama. They are getting a name. One of these names that we are talking about is taking this job.
It's not going to be DeBoer. I don't think it's going to be.
I don't think it's going to be Kalen DeBoer either. But I'm saying whether it's Lanning, whether it's Dabo, James Franklin. God, I just can't imagine that they would want him to be the head coach.
I love James Franklin, great recruiter, but he can't coach it up. He loses every big game.
I think Lane's interesting. I think Lane's very interesting, Joe, because he was there for a couple of years. He knows what Nick built there. He understands what Nick built there. I think that Sark's not in there because Sark can get whatever he wants at Texas. Lane can't get whatever he wants at Ole Miss. He's complained about it already, about how these other teams can spend more than us in NIL. I think that's a very interesting one, Joe, to look at. But whatever happens, it's just going to cause the dominoes. Whoever takes that job, their job's going to open. Then that job's going to open. You're about to have a real landslide, potentially, of a lot of jobs opening up in college football, depending on who takes that job.
They put a number on it. I'm taking a shot on Kiffin. Give me plus money with Kiffin. I'm taking a shot. He coaches up offense. That's what you need in today's.
I think that would be my pick too, Joe. I think that would be my pick as well. That's for sure. Great stuff here. So Nick Saban out, retiring at Alabama. Ferrall coast to coast here on a Wednesday. Carver and Lisi in for Scotty. We'll come back. We have a lot more to do. We will rip through all the NBA tonight before we get out of here, and all the college basketball. I'm sure Joe's got some platinum plays for us before he gets out of here. We're back after this.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. We're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
San Francisco minus 120 to win the NFC Championship. It's the Cowboys with the second best number. The Eagles at 7-1.
What the hell's the difference between the 6th and the 7th seed? I need my guys healthy here to make a playoff push. They took the bye week and still won the football game. You want to talk about two franchises going in the wrong direction? The Eagles. Ridiculous what they did this week.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's a lot of fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, a Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back, Ferrall Coast to Coast here on a Wednesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us. Of course, we're talking Nick Saban out at Alabama. The names are flying fast, Joe. I mean, that's one thing. You spend enough time on the internet here. It hasn't even been a half an hour since this news came out. And you can find the names. I mean, people are throwing them all out there now. Dion, this one. Norvell. There's everybody. Everybody's
it's not
a candidate.
It's not.
I don't think it's going to be Norvell either, but everyone's going to be a candidate. Now, Dion and Nick, like, they're tight. They did the duck commercials together, Joe. The insurance commercials together. I'm sure that they're tight. They know each other well.
He's a great recruiter. So Dion could sell it, and with that type of talent, who knows? I mean, here's the way I would do it. I would put, if I'm doing a list, Lane, Dan Lanning, Dion, and then I guess it's, if you, Dabo and Sark, I think are right there. I mean, early on, I don't want anybody else right now. I wouldn't want, who else you going to get? Who else is, I don't want DeBoer. They got to, whoever you get to coach Alabama, it's not just the X's and O's. They have to handle the pressure. It's almost like coaching in New York, right? We talk about being a quarterback or a coach in the New York area. And the pressure is you win now or out the door. There is no tomorrow at Alabama. They're not expecting you because Nick Saban walks out the door to go 8-4 in the SEC next year. So, you keep that train rolling. It's 11 or 1 or bust.
Well, no doubt, Joe, because I was just looking at, a bunch of stuff on him. Other than the first year, 10-plus wins every year. And I'm not exaggerating. Every year, Joe, 10-plus wins.
That's the standard.
That's the minimum. The standard, the minimum is you have to be able to do that. And you got to sprinkle in SEC championships and national championships and playoff appearances. Not sprinkling.
So who are we going to get? I
don't know,
Kiffin.
Joe.
I think it's
obviously
Kiffin. They would open up the vault for Kiffin.
Like I said, if I was them, that's who I would go with. I think that it's, you have obviously being in the building in the past. You have coached in the SEC. You have, you check a lot of boxes with that hire.
Let's not forget, he won in the SEC, at an under, a middling type of program in Ole Miss that took it to back-to-back double-digit wins. So you can't say, and not only that, when he was the OC, I mean, prolific offenses, elite, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, no doubt, Joe. This is going to be fun here. This is going to be, you're going to hear a lot of names. And also, Joe, know this. This is not like we have all these NFL openings right now where coaches are going to interview 6,000 assistants. I mean, owners are going to interview 6,000 assistants, and they're going to take their time. And that is not the case here, Joe, because in college football, you don't have time. There's no time because you got the window open right now. You got 30 days. You got to get players in there. You got to keep players from leaving. This is something, Joe, that's going to happen very fast. I think you agree with me on that.
Absolutely, especially with the transfer portal. Think about what they have as a core. You have to keep that before players bolt, right?
Right.
How many? I mean, because it's almost like you have to equate this almost to the Pac-12 situation with Washington State and Oregon State. This is huge. This isn't some minor move.
In fact, Joe, I'll bet you this right now. Obviously, me and you are out of here in like 15 minutes, and we got game time decisions going on. I would bet there's a decent chance by the time me and you get back, not that there'll be a hire, but by the time me and you get back on for radio tonight at 8 East, there won't be a hire. But what I'm saying is I bet in the next 3 hours, you'll start to see a more definitive Alabama has reached out to X, Y, and Z, and
I'll
start
say
like
this.
there will be that.
And here's the other certain. Tommy Reese has his bags packed already.
Well, listen, I don't know. You want to go back to Freeman? Shouldn't have left, kid. Shouldn't have left last year. You took all that extra money to go work for Nicky, and then Nicky left. Joe, quickly, there's a lot of NBA tonight. Let's roll through that fast before we get out of here, including the best team in the West and the best team in the East meeting in Boston tonight, Celtics and the Timberwolves. Right now, Joe, -9.5 here for the Celtics. This total, 225.5. T-Wolves smashed Orlando last night. I saw Rudy Gobert's questionable. I saw that Mike Conley's out. Anthony Edwards barely played last night. He had 3 fouls in the first quarter. Went to the locker room at one point. He had a miserable night. Maybe he bounces back here. But I think that's a lot, Joe, 9.5.
I would lay it, but is Tatum playing? If Tatum's playing.
Tatum's playing, yes. Tatum's
I'm
playing.
laying it, and let's all Tatum to 35.
No, I will never. I don't play Tatum anymore in props. We don't get involved with Jason Tatum.
That's it.
No.
It's a crypto play. It's a
He's
crypto.
out.
You're not playing
I don't touch
Tatum.
And you know what? God bless you. I'm sure he'll score 40 points for you tonight. I'm done with that guy. The once in a blue moon where I just need him to get something like 25, he gets 19 and he shoots 4 for 17 from the floor. He's never there for me, Joe. He's just one of those guys. He's a great player. I don't play him. The Kings won in Detroit last night. Tonight they're in Charlotte against the Hornets. -8.5 for Sacramento. 230.5 is the total. You know, if this wasn't a back-to-back, Joe, I'd say lay it. But then I realized the Hornets suck. So you know what, Joe? I'm going to lay it anyway. -8.5 with the Kings.
I'll take the 8.5, minus the 8.5 with the Kings. I like the over.
I like the over.
I like the. Is Terry Rozier playing?
I'm sure he is, Joe. Your boy Terry Rozier. Go ahead, alt it. 30, 35, 5 threes. Go ahead, Joe. Go get involved with Terry Rozier. Big one tonight in Detroit. 5-30 Spurs and the 3-34 Pistons getting together. Nothing like 8-64 combined here in early January to get you excited. -3.5 for Wembanyama and the crew. 238.5 the total.
I'm going to lay it with Pop. I'm going to lay it with Pop and Wemby. His wingspan is huge. Let's go under the 238. I think they double-digit win for the Spurs. Pop always coaches them up.
His wingspan is huge. The Wizards are in Indiana against the Pacers tonight. -8.5 for the Pacers. How about this one, Joe? 251.5 here for the total.
Sell under the total. I'm not buying into this team. Halliburton's banged up. I know they like to run tempo. No way. Give me the Wizards and the under.
You know, you make a good point here, Joe. We know that these Pacer games fly over every single night. We got to see if that's still going to be the case with Halliburton out of the lineup. So I don't think we should go running to the window for these overs yet. Wizards suck, so it probably will still hit tonight. But that's the way that goes. Next, Sixers are in Atlanta against the Hawks. I will tell you, no Embiid for the Sixers tonight, Joe. They are -1.5 road favorites in Atlanta. 244.5 the total.
I like Atlanta as a home dog, and I think we go fast and loose with no Embiid. That's a big night for Trae Young. Let's go over this total. It could be just like, what is it, 48 minutes of hell? Let's go over the 243.5. I was thinking Arkansas and Nolan Richardson.
That was them. That was 40 minutes, Joe. They only played 40 in college,
I know,
not 48.
That's why I said
40 minutes
that's
of
why
hell.
I said 48 in the pros.
48 minutes of hell. Oklahoma City's on the long East Coast trip. They're in Miami tonight against the Heat. Thunder are 4.5-point road favorites here, 233.5. I'll tell you this, Joe. Spoelstra got that fat bag we were talking about with the $120 million. Give me him with the 4.5 at home tonight against the Thunder. Let's go.
Is JB playing or is he still out?
I don't think that he is, Joe. I will get you confirmation on that.
I was on the Heat Monday night laying the 4. I can't go back to the well. Give me the under. Hero.
You can't go back to the well. Hero. Hey, Hero. Hey, Hero. Hold on, Joe. I'm going to get you that right now. Yeah, he's out, Joe. No JB tonight for them. He's not in the line. He hasn't been. He's been out pretty much consistently here. Houston is in Chicago against your Bulls. Bulls minus 3.5, 216.5 the total.
All Kobe White, all the Bulls outright. They're laying it or they're catching?
No, they're laying it, Joe. The Bulls are 3.5-point favorites tonight.
Could that guy DeRozan get over
Outright.
25? This guy,
Outright.
I'm telling you, every single time I bet DeRozan for 25, they tack a 21.5 number on him. I go for 25. The guy ends up with 14 every single time. Tonight will be the night he busts out. I'm doing a Tatum and DeRozan parlay tonight.
The Pelicans are at Golden State against the Warriors. Pelicans minus 2.5 road favorites here. 233.5 the total. I'm taking the Warriors tonight, Joe, as the home dog.
One thing I know is that my guy is Valanciunas stepping up tonight. 12 bounds for Valanciunas. Darling, hold my scarf and my Skechers. I got to get some bounds when we play Steph and the Golden State Warriors. I'll take some caviar with those bounds.
The Jazz have been playing much better. They've got themselves now to 18-20. They have the Nuggets, though, coming in tonight. Nuggets minus 6.5-point road favorites in Salt Lake. 237.5 is the total. I like the Jazz here, Joe, with the 6.5 at home.
Like the Jazz, I like the over. 237.5. What do you think?
Yeah, why not? I think they could get there. Why not? The Jazz play no D. So sure, why not? They got to hit a lot of shots tonight, that's for sure.
There we go with
finally,
the Kawhi.
late night. Here we go with Kawhi. The Raptors, who, of course, we played Darko earlier. They got kind of jobbed in the fourth quarter against the Lakers last night. They spend the night in L.A. They get to play again tonight at the Crypto against the Clippers. They're catching 10.5, Joe, in this game. 236.5 the total. I think I'm going to take the Raptors here with the 10.5.
Well, would they combine for 263 last night? Back to back, under, sell.
Under, Joe.
I think
Selling here.
You know,
selling.
Because Darko said now they're going to swallow the whistles. So now they're going to a little body English. They're not going to call every foul for Darko.
Yeah, they're going to swallow the whistles, Joe. They are going to do that.
Get mugged tonight.
They are going to do that. Do you have for me quickly, guys? We got like a minute. Can I slide in? I don't want the Houston loss. Can you give me Nebraska beating Purdue quickly here? Here we go. Nebraska-Purdue on Cornhusker Radio. Number one goes down, Joe. Let's hear it.
And the Huskers are going to go to 13-3 on the year and to 3-2 in the conference. And you hear the Go Big Red chant.
Go Big Red.
Get this ball in bounds. Let this crowd storm the floor, baby.
Gillis into Braden Smith. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And for the first time in 41 years, Nebraska knocks off the top-ranked team in the country, and they are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. They are storming the floor. Sign your name, Fred Hoiberg. There's your signature win.
They're partying here in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, listen to that, Joe.
Hoiberg, they basically, he was Hoiberg when they had 1 foot out the door a couple of years ago, and now he's cooking with fire.
Now he's getting it done. Purdue playing like it's March in Lincoln, Nebraska last night. Nice job by the Cornhuskers, who've been pretty good. All right, we'll come back, Joe. I'll give you tonight's college. We've been backed up with the Saban stuff. We will finish it off, though, coast to coast after this.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices. And we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now he's all a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby. The money.
Pro Football Today.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
San Francisco minus 120 to win the NFC Championship. It's the Cowboys with the second best number. The Eagles at 7-1.
What the hell's the difference between the 6 and the 7 seed? I need my guys healthy here to make a playoff push. They took the bye and still won the football game. You want to talk about two franchises going in the wrong direction? The Eagles. Ridiculous what they did this week.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's a lot of fun to do because you could kind of, place a season-long bet all at once and just wait it out. I've always found that interesting. But New York is one state where it's a little bit unclear.
You cannot bet on basically anything that requires a vote. So you're talking about an MVP award, a Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, anything where people at the end of the year have to vote.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Bills going on the road to Miami Gardens, knocking off the Dolphins as 3-point favorites. They win it 21-14.
You want to lose like the Falcons did today, 48-17? That's probably bothersome. You want to win an ugly game where you throw 3 picks, but you end up winning the division? No one cares. Ain't nobody going to be talking about interceptions in the end zone tomorrow. You know what they're talking about? Hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers next weekend in the playoffs.
Football Full Circle. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back for El Coast to Coast here on a Wednesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. Of course, the big news today has been, Joe, really, two coaches, very well-known coaches out. Obviously, Nick Saban, we've talked about a lot this hour, out at Alabama, retiring. Pete Carroll out at the Seattle Seahawks. So we've had a lot of movement, and I don't think we're done this week, Joe. Obviously, the one that's been hovering is Belichick. In New England. We'll see what will happen there.
I just wanted a quick, we didn't talk about it. Does Pete Carroll, if he gets an attractive college job, you think he could go back? I mean, he's 72 in that type of setting.
It's like I said to you earlier, like you were mentioning about like a young team, like the Titans, does he got 3 to 5 years left coaching to build a program? I don't know about that. I think he needs to go. If he's going to coach again, it's got to be somewhere where he can win in the next 2 or 3 years, get himself another championship. Joe, we have a lot of college basketball tonight. We did not get to, of course, with all this news. Here we go. Providence is at the Garden tonight, Joe. No Carnesecca tonight. Patino wants these games in the Garden here for St. John. 7.5's the number. Kansas is at UCF. Tennessee at Mississippi State. Clemson and Va-Tech tonight. UNC and NC State, always a fun game.
Yeah, I'm laying it with North Carolina, and we're taking Providence. I love their bigs tonight. Love the bigs. On the road, Carver, Providence, North Carolina. No. What do you mean no? What do you mean no?
No.
You take
St. John's going to run Providence out of the Garden tonight. Going to run them right out of the Garden.
You think so?
Oh, really?
No,
Principal play.
Tune in.
Principal play.
Tune in tonight.
Principal play.
Giants.
Okay?
I love
Principal
their bigs.
play.
I love their bigs.
We'll do the rest of the games tonight, Joe. Obviously, Memphis is playing tonight. UConn and Xavier tonight. Wisconsin plays Ohio State tonight. Cuse is at Boston College for the Fighting Bluets, Florida and Ole Miss, and a partridge in a pear tree. There's hockey tonight, too, 3 games, including Vegas and Colorado. A very good one. We will discuss that on Carver and Lisi. Game Time Decisions is next. Great job by everybody today, including you, Joe. You did a great job as well. Scotty back tomorrow for a Warren Sharp Thursday. Coast to coast. See you then.